Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. BAM weather meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long range forecast update as we work throughout the month of September. I hope all of you had a fantastic Labor Day weekend. Let's hop right into it. We have a lot to talk about in terms of the temperatures and the frost potential, very early frost potential across the north central part of the United States as we go later into this week and into the weekend as we continue with these powerful cold fronts as we start out our fall season, if you will. And so if we take a look here, I want to start out with just our general outlooks over the next 2 weeks. You can see here, next 7 days, look at all the blues and the greens here, just much below normal temperatures across the Ag Belt, especially the upper Midwest, the northern plains, and the Great Lakes. Again, that's what's leading to the frost potential, very early frost potential for that part of the country later this week. We'll touch more on that here in a moment. You can see heading into the week 2 time frame, we should moderate a little bit between our fronts. I think that somewhere between the 10th and the 15th of the month, maybe a little bit of a better shot of more milder air working back in. I don't necessarily think that it's a hot pattern or a much above normal pattern, but I think especially if you're in the central part of the country, warmer air, certainly compared to the next 7 days, on the table. But data has continued to run too warm in general, not seeing these cold fronts very well in the extended range. You can see we've got one the 9th to the 11th. We've got maybe a stronger one around the 15th, 16th of the month. I think the same type of deal here. Data probably not seeing these very well right now. As a result, still leaning towards the cooler solution in week 2. Some cooler trends possible in the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and maybe some warmer trends down in parts of Texas. In terms of precipitation, leads to messy rainfall. Not going to be widespread, heavy, soaking rains, but much of the Ag Belt will cash in on some moisture as these fronts move through. The better chances for more widespread rain will be once again down in parts of the southern and the southeast plains, and really more of the same into the week 2 time frame. I think maybe the plains, northwest plains, have a little bit of a better shot of some moisture in the week 2 time frame, but still leaning drier than normal for the eastern Ag Belt as we go throughout that time frame. Let's talk a little bit more about our frost potential because, again, guys, it's very early. It's not very often that we get frost risk this early in the season, even for areas this far north in the country. This is a look at the latest blend of models for Thursday morning, the low temperature into Thursday morning behind the initial front. You can see here, taking a look at just some of these numbers, 38, 38, 37, that doesn't even include the outlying areas. There are certainly some spots here on this particular piece of model guidance that are not only below 36, but even below 32 in this region. And then again, pockets that are 36 or below, kind of north of this line. You can even see maybe a couple of pockets of frost Thursday morning across northwest Iowa and southwest Minnesota. So if anything, guys, generally speaking, the trends have been cooler as we've gotten closer. Data tends to underdo how cold overnight lows can actually end up going. I think that certainly means that a frost risk is on the table for parts of the northern plains, the upper Midwest Thursday, and really more of the same as we work into Saturday and into Sunday. Saturday, I would say a decent threat across central and western North Dakota, northern parts of South Dakota. That threat will continue to come back further to the east, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, eastern parts of North Dakota as we work into Sunday. And again, guys, considering the fact that data tends to trend cooler as we get a little bit closer, here's our frost threat map for areas that need to be most on alert for this risk. 36 degrees or below, generally speaking, is what can produce frost at the surface on nights like this between September 4th and 7th. I would say that if you were in North Dakota, the northern half of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan, and into the Canadian prairies, you're at a pretty high risk to see frost. Now, I don't think every single spot will. If you are in the city or right next to it, maybe not. But especially in those outlying areas and those low-lying areas, I think there's a pretty good shot to see the first frost of the season in that turquoise color. The lighter blue color that you see, that's where I think more of a patchy risk is possible. This is where I think data could be a little bit too warm right now, at least in those outlying and low-lying areas. So if you are in Minneapolis, just in northern parts of Iowa, central parts of South Dakota, eastern South Dakota, would not rule out a patchy frost risk between the 4th and the 7th this week. So something to keep in mind as we roll things forward. In terms of the overall pattern progression, here's a look at what data had several days ago, back on the 30th of the month. of August in terms of the 10 to 15 day forecast. This was between the 9th and the 14th of September. You can see it favored a pretty decent warm up, above normal temperatures for the majority of the Ag Belt, much above normal temperatures in some spots across the Canadian prairies. Look at how that has rolled forward over the past 3 days. The warmth across parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley have pretty much gone away. There has been a consistent cooler trend, a consistent delay of the warm up in the extended range. And I don't see any reason why that would stop, because we have a front around the 9th to the 11th, and we have maybe a stronger one around the 14th to the 16th of the month. Can we warm up across the northern plains? I think that's certainly possible, but areas further east, I think it's going to be more challenging than what data is trying to depict. Data has been consistently too warm in the extended range. There's also this. This is not looking like a powerful typhoon right now, but there is a tropical cyclone that looks to recurve, maybe impact Japan, and recurve to the north and to the east in the North Pacific over the next several days. Traditionally speaking, that will aid in a cold front risk down the road. It would correlate to about the time of our mid-month cold front, 14th to the 16th, somewhere in there. Another reason that I think data probably warming up the forecast too much for the middle part of the month. So generally, next several days, I would watch for continued cooler trends. I think especially the GEFS is too warm. And if you look, it's actually, with its upper level temperatures, actually trying to see the cold front in here. It's trying to cool things back down. What this means is, as we roll forward, I would expect this area that I've circled to trend cooler. Could there be another frost potential in this circled area? I don't think it's off the table. I think Iowa, I think Wisconsin, Michigan, maybe even northern Illinois, northern Indiana, we need to be keeping an eye on a threat here around the 16th, 15th, 16th of the month or so. Data starting to hint at the idea. In terms of the pattern beyond that, analogs right now, and a lot of these same analogs we used on Friday, we added 2022 in here, and I'll talk more about that year here in a moment, generally speaking, tends to keep the warmer air in the western half of the country and some cooler air to the east, but I will note not nearly as intense of a signal compared to what some of the analogs had for this upcoming period of cold. Cooler than normal, yes, but maybe not as substantial. If we take a look at precipitation, it still tends to favor drier risks across the south and east part of the country, and certainly we're leaning drier than normal over the next 2 weeks. If there's an area with that could maybe see some better precipitation chances, it would be probably up in this area here as we start to moderate the pattern the middle to latter part of the month. If we take a look at the evolution of the North Pacific, you can see kind of behind our stronger front around the 15th, 16th, we linger some cooler air around, but certainly does favor a warm up as we work into the back third of September. This is something we've been talking about for a while. I think the general breakdown of things as we go into mid to late September is probably some cooler air behind the 14th to 16th front. Once we get around the 19th, 20th, we're warming things up. I think that we could go into a milder pattern for a time until we have another cold front around the 28th or 29th of the month. So still some ups and downs in there, but I do think the last third of September can be milder compared to the first 2/3. If we take a look at 2022, I think it actually highlights this pretty well. Especially to start out this time frame, I think some cooler air across the eastern half of the country, that additional strong front, but then bleeding in some of the warmth across the western and central U.S. further east with time. The CFS Weekly, I would also say, tries to hint at this same idea. Keep in mind, weekly data has been consistently much too warm, but you can see to start weeks 3 and 4, it's got some of the warmth west and some cooler air east. I like that idea. And then as we work into the week 4 time frame, it bleeds in this warmth in a more widespread fashion. You average that out, it'll look a lot like what 2022 verified as. So I think probably a pretty decent idea here from the CFS Weekly. If you're in the eastern ag belt, the eastern part of the country, cooler into the week 3 time frame, warming up with time. Taking a look at precipitation, generally continuing to favor the drier risks overall, I would say. Maybe some moisture, especially across the plains, and then into the week 4 time frame in the Great Lakes and the northeast part of the country. Matches with the analogs pretty well. The EPS Weekly is even drier. I think it's probably a little bit too dry, but still, where it has its driest conditions, I don't necessarily disagree. This is where drought conditions have been expanding as of late through this region in here. I don't really see a reason to indicate that that is going to change substantially moving forward. I think the pattern continues to linger drier than normal. With all that being said, here's how we average things out. Again, keeping an eye on the 14th to 16th for another strong cold front risk that probably lingers into the start of the week 3 time frame, warming up beyond the 19th and 20th of the month before maybe one last strong cold front to end September. In terms of precipitation, because of some of the fronts and because of the moderation in here, I don't think that we're much below normal anywhere. I think that if you're in the upper Midwest, you're in parts of the plains, you're going to have a more difficult time to see consistent dry windows. There's going to be messy rainfall chances. Areas that are going to be better off in terms of harvest and dry windows, once again, I think the eastern ag belt through this area in here will have a better chance, of seeing consecutive days of dry time. Before we go, here's a look at that front to end the month. Warming up and then maybe another cool down to end September 29th, 30th or so of the month. And I think also the potential for a bigger uptick in hurricane activity, tropical activity as we work into the back half of September. We are already seeing that as we get into the week 2 time frame. Very likely going to see Gabrielle here in the central Atlantic as we work into next week. I think that the back half of September, early October could certainly pose a higher risk for a more active part of tropical season in here. Whether that means more storms to the East Coast or whether they stay more out to sea, I think that still remains to be seen, but certainly think the back half of September is more active from a tropical perspective. Guys, that's all I have for today's forecast. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great rest of your day.